Welcome to another episode of the Wood Couture podcast, the incredible Indian designer series, recording live at the Marriott Juhu in the Bollywood capital, Mumbai. Today, we have the absolute pleasure to welcome what I define and I admire as a true Indian artist, designer, and entrepreneur, because 45 years ago, he had the brilliant idea of setting up Pinakin Studio. So the one and only Pinakin Patel. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm
Amazing.
so happy to be here with you.
Yes, I'm very excited. I was really looking forward, to meet you because, I read a lot about you. I've seen what is available in the public domain, obviously.
Of course, yes.
But the most interesting fact, you are a chemistry graduate, which make it even more interesting.
Yeah.
How was the switch from chemistry to design?
What happened is that I'm talking about the 60s in India. And at that time, when I was growing up, there was no sort of establishment of design. Even contemporary art was just about raising its head. And there was no fashion. People used to buy fabrics and stitch their clothes with tailors. So I did not know what design was. If I knew what it was when I was in school and when I was growing up, I would have gone into a design school. There were architecture schools, but even interior design was just about coming up. So I took the easier option of following Dad. And Dad said, look, we should do chemicals because that's the family business. And, you'll be established and, you won't have to look for work anywhere. So I took up the study of chemistry. I went to work with him in the business. And financially, there was no problem. I was doing well. But somewhere deep inside, I felt that I needed to express myself differently.
Yes.
So I confided in the two women in my life, my wife and my mother, and I said, would you be embarrassed in society if I suddenly stopped going to work and, started from scratch? So they said, no, not at all. Please do what you need to do. And it gave me the confidence, and there was nobody to take advice from. There was nobody to follow. So it was pretty much a hard struggle in the beginning.
So you were not able to express your creativity in the boardroom. Design is a place where
I guess.
And that's why you flourished, because, you are who you are because of that. You are an artist at heart.
Yes, I guess half the battle is won when you identify who you are, right? And are honest enough to pursue that.
Yes, very much. In one of your interviews, you talk about something that for me was so sweet. And I loved it. You talk about when your grandfather gifted a piece of land here in Juhu, actually. And now he measured it with the stick. And because you ask him, how big is it? He is still measuring. What did you learn from that example?
That's amazing. So what I learned was that design is not anything scientific. It's not anything wildly creative like art. In fact, I think the process of creation is only in the hands of two entities. Nature, it's always creating things around you, and women who can create babies and actually produce life. But otherwise, in design, for example, you're only joining the existing dots. There is size, shape, form, light, texture, material, and you connect them differently each time, and therefore the picture is new. But otherwise, you're not really creating anything from scratch. So a lot of times, it is just your approach to solving the moment and what is required. So we were on this piece of land and not another building for 100 miles anywhere around. And my grandfather had just bought me this piece of land as my birthday present. And he says, we should at least measure it, right? And for that purpose, his walking stick was always 1 meter long. So I said, how are we going to do it? We don't have a tape. We don't have an architect. So he says, I'll do it, just help me. And he kept flipping it on the land and we had the size. So that's when I learned that a lot of it is also just good old fashioned common sense.
Wow. Along your journey, have you met, found, or consulted with people that you define as mentors?
Oh, yes. See, when you are educated, then your university dean or your professors start playing the roles of mentors for you, right? But when you haven't studied this and you've just gone into it by accident, mentorship is very important. Um, in the beginning, I got it as a kind of goodwill and a kind of friendship. So when I started making things for the house, the only audience that was buying it was the first generation of five-star hotels that were coming up in this country. So the designers of these hotels were the buyers for the kind of products I was starting with, which were, loose furniture and accessories and a bit of craft. So when I started going to them, they turned out to be not only buyers, but also mentors because um, in the 70s and 80s, the pace of life was much slower in this country and therefore everybody was time rich. So even when you went to somebody to transact something, you were not only transacting, you were growing in the experience because you were sharing what you had and they were telling you what to do. So my first mentors were the professionals who were trying to buy from me. Later on, the mentorship actually shifted into the hands of the clients, with whom interior designers have long had a problem. They're usually fighting with them, and on the last day, invariably they split. But I was lucky because my clients were actually not consumers. They were patrons of design. They were people who had led good lives, had a good education, good upbringing, and therefore they knew how to protect a designer, make him sit next to them and get a good project mutually, you see. So they became my mentors. And it's quite funny how in this entire journey of 45 years, there wasn't a single day when I knew who I was going to be next year or next decade. It was always, so to say, the client or indirectly the mentor or somebody who saw the potential in me and said, Pinakin, why don't you do this?
Wow. So they were giving you a chance all this.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. It's a fantastic way of looking at this. Is although you've been very humble,
No, I'm not
you
humble.
self-taught, as you say, you are very,
But I've seen life, and life teaches you so many lessons, right?
very much. Every day we learn.
Yeah.
Another thing that I grasp from the literature and the narratives that are out there, and this is a beautiful one. Human body language is main source of inspiration. Why is that?
See, everything starts from here, right? So whether we are doing design of a piece of furniture or a garment or a room or an architecture, whatever we are trying to design, the need comes as a human need. Yeah. And that has to be addressed comfortably, intelligently, functionally, aesthetically, within a time, within a budget. And there's so many factors that contribute into balancing all the aspects of design that you need one strong point and say that if you want to refer to the main fulcrum or the base of the whole thing, what is it? And for me, I made that into the body language or the human form, because now, as an Italian, you sort of conduct your body in a different way from which I conduct. You sit differently. Perhaps your partner wears a short skirt and she sits cross-legged. Mine wears a sari or a more covered garment and she's not conscious of how she sits in that. After 5 minutes, I'm in a hot country. I'm going to kick off my shoes and I'm going to curl up my feet. And excuse me, but I'm going to be more comfortable like this. So if you give me a chair that just keeps me sort of, here, after some time it's going to be not my chair. Yeah. So that's how I try to put the sizing from there, our overall height, our height from the hip to the shoulder is what determines the backrest for me. And the way I put the chair in the room is also part of the body language, because let's say that you've got the better seat, right? You're looking at the sea. So that's how then, once I take care of your body language and its functions, then I put the chair facing the better view or the better breeze. And then that's how I position the room. That's how I position the building. So everything comes from the human form.
Is this knowledge, of course, over 45 years of experience, but have grown in you because you started as a product designer and then
Yes.
living in spaces? Let me rephrase it. What mistake tends young designers do that don't have this kind of knowledge in designing furniture? Because what you just described, it makes perfect sense to me.
Thank
I
you.
mean, it's,
Thank you.
absolutely. So it's interesting. I never thought about that perspective.
Well, that's very kind of you to appreciate this, but I don't know if it makes sense in young people's minds, because, unfortunately, nowadays, young people are not looking for growth. When we were young, we were looking for expansion. We were looking for growth, expansion of the mind, expansion of knowledge. There was a whole world to discover. Now, all that's already come into their phone. So they are only looking for a career. So the difference that you find in me is of a person or a generation that did not have to focus everything on a career, success, recognition, that was in search of growth and expansion.
Wow, that's interesting. Very deep, yeah, very deep. And another thing that again, I'm picking up all these, messages I get from the narratives, and I'm trying to think. Yesterday we had other interviewees, peers, colleagues of yours of the industry, and one of them at the end, which is another 50-year career, he said, "There is Italian design, there is, European design, there is British design," but said, "I'm in search to understand what is Indian design." And again, a lot of people in the industry define you are the one that understand the most the Indian philosophy. So what is Indian design and Indian philosophy?
Well, this is a very, very serious and deep question, because, you are asking this to an Indian who has only known Indianness for 75 years. You've been Italian for hundreds of years, if not thousands. So when I ask you what it means to be Italian, you have an easier answer to give, because it's passed down over so many generations. It's become a part of you. Whereas, what is India? I mean, if you really go to see its history, the entire subcontinent was broken into little kingdoms, almost like each country of Europe. with no common language, no common food, no common culture, except for the fact that they all lived by the principle of life, not even a religion. Hinduism, as they say, was coined only by the British to give the religion a name, but there was no religion. There was only just a way of life. Dharma, as we call it, right? So just a few uniting principles, and everybody was so different. So when you say that what is Indian, perhaps most people would say that what is Indian is what the West perceives us to be. And I don't like that because that's an outsider's perspective, you know. So if I come to Italy and if I start telling you what Italy is about, you'll make fun of me. You would say, oh, please, come on now. We know who we are. So, yeah.
Oh, we pretend to know.
You pretend to know.
We pretend to know, but I'm not sure.
Deep down, you know who you are because nobody's challenged it. You see, for us, what's happened is we've been invaded by so many different cultures and, so many different people, and for so many different reasons, for economy, for religion, for so many things. And finally, when the British left us, they had destroyed our language. They had, sort of weakened our minds by slavery, where we thought that everything that was respectable or knowledgeable was British. So when you ask most of us who we think we are, we will give you an answer of what we would like to be in Western eyes. Well, perhaps you find me different only because I didn't carry that much burden in me because I found it extremely annoying to constantly judge myself from somebody else's perspective. So I changed the perspective. I just took the camera and put it back towards me. And I said, if I'm talking to myself, what would I do? So with that honesty, at a more integral level, I did not need pastiche objects and symbols. I didn't need the paisley or the flying sari or the romantic Maharaja or any of those symbols that the West saw and romanticized as India in a good way, but these are the impressions they formed. So for me, Indianness gets straight to the point of saying that it's about a simple way of living. So how do I address that simplicity to start with? So minimalism is too fancy a word, but I would say a simple word. So how do I make you comfortable? How do I address your functions? How do I respect your money? How do I value your time? So these kind of judgments, according to me, are extremely important for what I think is different by being Indian. Then comes the tremendous opportunity and experience that one has had of exploring the country for its diversity and getting inspired by millions of things around you, to the point that if you look at a traditional Indian sculpture, so say you look at a Nataraj or you look at a Krishna cast in bronze, if you get stuck to the physical form, you will say, that's Indian. The curve, the hip, the movement is Indian. But there is a great amount of negative space in that sculpture also, which if you extract, you have abstraction. You have the purest formlessness that is coming out of the form.
It's interesting, again, from an outsider perspective, when we're talking about design and addressing the question or the dilemma that your colleague, was saying, and I'm in pursuit of defining Indian design. And again, I'm not a designer, but if I have to put, not comparing, but how would you define Italian design? For me, Italian design is driven by simple color palettes.
Yes.
Because our food is simple, in a sense, olive oil, tomato, mozzarella, single ingredient. We don't have blend. Apart from pasta, even it's tomato sauce.
Yes.
Pizza is very, even the history of the pizza come from pizza margherita, tomato and a bread base.
Yes.
So the gray, the white, the beige, this is us. Then if I look what I would define quintessentially Indian design, which is that's what gives the greatest value, is the richness of colors, is the richness of materials, textile, and this morning I was in the gym and I was looking at the music video, and there is no one music video. They don't have a lot of people, coordination, colors. It's a really show, while our music video maybe is much more, more about social problem we're facing as opposed to be happy surroundings, even though it's interesting because this is the beauty of the differentiation.
I think so.
Yeah, but I actually see from an external, I say, wow, for me, Indian design is very rich in many things. It's a richness of culture. Is the culture, the cultural base that you guys have
is very different.
Is very different and is very rich because, Rajasthan to here is totally different.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And it's beautiful. But
so therefore, interestingly, when you speak about the fact that you are sort of caught up with the color of this country and its color palette, but if you really go to see, that's your perspective of what you have seen, and of course it is right, but it may come as a surprise to you that if you looked at, say, places down south, more in Kerala, more in Tamil Nadu, because of the fact that there is so much greenery around in nature, and because of that foliage, everybody only wore white. So there is an absence of color in the south. There is more a celebration of white. So it's just so
great. I mean, it's fantastic. This is the beauty.
This is the beauty.
Yeah.
And in Rajasthan that you mentioned,
yeah,
it's a desert country. For miles together, it's like the Sahara. Everything is beige and sandy. So what's going to look nice with beige? And everybody is in red and hot pink and yellow and bright colors because you have to be spotted in the desert, isn't it? Because there's no other form or shape or color. So it's all related to the environment.
Right. In 2008, you established a museum for your guru, Padma Bhushan Patel. And what's so special that you end up doing of this person that you end up doing a museum?
Dashat Patel was India's Renaissance man, if you can say that. In the 1920s, he had, as an artist, he had acquired a scholarship to go to École Beaux-Arts in Paris. He got to learn ceramics from Professor Eckert in Czechoslovakia. He learned photography from Henri Cartier-Bresson in France. And by virtue of being the first multidisciplinary practitioner of India, the government approached him when they were opening their first design institution and design college in Ahmedabad called the National Institute of Design. So they said, why don't you become the head of education here? And he was very young. And he said, me running a educational institution? And they said, yeah, because you're the only Indian who has done quite a few disciplines. So, his journey kept shifting, and with each discipline, there was growth. There was expansion of his mind, of understanding, of interrelationships, and how everything ultimately was one. So, that made him such a large figure. And because he kind of kept responding to the needs of the times around him, he had very little time to promote himself. So his attention was for national projects. So if the government wanted to do an exhibition on Nehru or Gandhi, he was called upon to do that, something else. So he did not have the time and attention left to promote himself through galleries as an artist. And therefore, he was undiscovered in many fields. And when the government decided to celebrate 50 years of Dashrath at the National Gallery of Modern Art, and I went to see the show, I was lucky to be able to converse with him. And the conversation itself sort of blossomed into an immediate rapport, perhaps what we call karma in this country, that is predestined. And I had just given up everything from the city and moved to Alibag to live with nature. So I thought that would interest him. And I said, would you like to come and see my studio in Alibag? And he says, sounds exciting. He came, and in 6 months, he asked me, he says, I don't have a wife, I don't have children, I don't have much luggage. Can I move into your house and work in your studio? So, I mean, I felt that was such a blessing. And both my wife and I said, yes, it's very important that the guru comes into our house. And so from that moment onwards, there was a feeling of being in awe of somebody who had come into your life with so much experience and knowledge. He was also a simple man. So he explained the most complex terms of the world in the most simple words. His destiny was such that he had met the American artist Rauschenberg as his friend. He had met Charles and Ray Eames. He knew Merce Cunningham, the dancer. And, he sort of knew people like Nakashima from Japan. So he was lucky to meet so many people and learn so many things from them. And here he was sort of willing to now relax in his retirement and spread his knowledge to others. And I found that Alibag would be the best place to do that because it was kind of rich in free space and time. The cities were too busy growing. So I thought of settling him in Alibag. He was happy to do that. But I still thought that I should try to make him famous. There was no need to do that because, he was already as large as he could be. But, when one becomes a student of somebody, the first feeling you get is to honor your teacher. So I said that, so I went to the National Gallery where I had, contacts, and I spoke to people, collectors, and I said, here is a Renaissance man of this country. Don't you think we should preserve his heritage? And don't you think you should make a museum or keep his sort of legacy alive? But unfortunately, India had to spend a lot of time looking after housing and food and medicine, and there was very little time left for art or culture, So there wasn't a proper response. And that's when I just one fine day woke up and I said, forget everybody else, I'm going to make your museum.
Okay, see, I love that. You're not afraid of challenges.
I'm not afraid of challenges.
So
no, that's true.
But listening to you, and I hope the people that are going to watch this, really, when they engage you, the amount of knowledge you gain, because you've got knowledge because of the experience of all these years.
Thank you.
But you have knowledge of somebody that being with you for many years, that also that humongous knowledge you have been absorbing.
Yes. And night and day, because for 24 hours he kept talking. Because he lived in the house and he kept sharing his experiences. And there was a student in me, right? Because I had never gone to university, to design school. So I was eager to listen.
Wow. You were like a sponge.
Yeah, we
taking it all in. Taking it all in.
Yeah.
Is there something you do in your day to day that you picked from him and you still doing?
In a very unconscious way, because we were separated by 50 years. So if you go by style, or if you go by taste, there's bound to be two generations of gap, right? So, so there's nothing that I do that visually or materially that he would do. So it's not a direct imitation. But my entire approach to design is his. So he always said that people are too much in a rush to start design the moment they're told that they have to create something. So they jump into design and they have preconceived ideas and baggage to say that when I make my first sofa, it's only going to be leather. When I make my first room, it's going to be only beige. So the moment you get that job, you're so obsessed with fulfilling your dream that you jump straight into it. He says design is 50% conceptualization, but he says the first stage, 50% of it is building a strategy.
Interesting. Building a strategy. Wow.
So he says you don't have a strategy, you cannot sit down to design. Please spend enough time building up a strategy. Why are we doing this? Why was it needed? Who is going to benefit from it? What is the time in which it has to be done? What market is it going to convey? Because design has the responsibility of working for a market, right? It's not a work of art that you just put into the gallery. So I have learned to strategize. So every day subconsciously, when I sit down to work, I plan it with a strategy.
Wow. So it's your storytelling, basically. You build the narratives and the storytelling.
Perhaps.
Wow.
Perhaps.
It's interesting. Wow. It's incredible, listening to you and
Thank you. You're so kind.
no, it's very much. It's inspiring because there is science, but the creativity is difficult to define. But what I'm getting, the way you're explaining things, I have to define you like you define your guru. You put it down so simply, put it that even the most damn out there can understand what you tried the message.
I hope that's good.
Yeah. Now, in your bucket of things to do or to achieve or to do, is there something that say I want to design that or I want to create that? What is left for you that to fulfill?
Oh, nothing is left, in a way. I don't want to sound boastful or romantic, but every single thing that, one creative person would have liked to do, I've done. So I've done furniture, I've done homes, I've done buildings, I've done cinema, I've done theater, I have done fashion, I've done catwalk shows. So I've done government work, I've done museums, I've worked in institutions. So life has been rich and God has been kind, and I've been lucky to do whatever I would have liked to do in life in that sense of the word. At some stage, I didn't want to do any of this because a certain saturation came and a certain limiting point came because I had achieved almost everything and yet there was something missing. So that's the time I turned to Indian philosophy.
Interesting.
Okay, because I had to find more meaning and in a way a higher joy. So it's like when you're a child and you have a teddy bear and somebody says that, give me the teddy bear, I'm giving you a Maserati. The child is going to say, I don't want the Maserati. What am I going to do with it? I'm happy with my teddy bear. But the Maserati exists, right? So there is a higher joy, which you only discover when you reach that stage. Otherwise, you're not aware of it. So in my midlife, I started contemplating and saying that why am I getting bored of success or bored of the surrounding or bored of this, and what is that thing that I am searching? Is it God? Is it some mystery that I'm going to try to solve as to who I am? What is my role on this planet? So that became a philosophical search. And the reason why I'm feeling contented is that until that point, my search or my journey was in search of beauty. So I wanted beauty in textile, beauty in jewelry, beauty in art, beauty in cinema, beauty in music, all related to the senses. And, if you go to see, beauty tends to multiplicity because it never satiates you. Because, when you have one work of art, you want to collect 10 more because you begin to understand them, you begin to appreciate them. So beauty does tend to multiplicity. So as long as my vehicle, I was searching for beauty, I was busy, I was dissatisfied, and I wanted more. The moment I shifted my will from the beautiful to the sublime, because, beauty manifests itself in the material.
Yes.
But it doesn't stem from there, it stems from the spirit.
Yes.
So the moment the search moved towards the things related to the spirit, the will was quenched. I was calm, satisfied. That's how I live now.
So, can I draw from what you're saying that spirituality form a greater part now of how you approach every design or you approach every creation?
Yes, yes.
Wow. And on that note, because you reach a certain level, as you say, sublime,
Yeah,
above the beauty,
yeah.
do you see your creations, design, or whatever it is that you're doing with different pair of eyes, or do you define it as better than before?
No, because, uh, Indian spirituality teaches you that everything is one. So there is no before and now. There is no better and worse. There's no good and bad. They are just two sides of the same coin. And it just depends on the time and situation and the need. So I don't see anything in comparison. I just absorb it in its totality.
So let me ask you a question on this that I don't know if it fits in this category. Because in the last 2 days, I had mixed responses, and people believe, people don't believe, people do it, people don't do it. I'm talking about Vastu. How much in your journey Vastu came to play?
Vastu, is like so many parts of Indian culture. It's extremely serious and important, but it's misunderstood. For me, Vastu is scientific because the earth is a round ball. You take a cricket ball, and if it's constantly spinning, it is bound to radiate energy fields. That's normal. And that energy that the movement produces is going off from the plane of the earth, but when it turns around, it re-enters your life, it re-enters your space. So that point of entry has to be defined so that that energy is not wasted. It's as simple as that. So you say that the way India is positioned and the axis at which the earth is spinning, the energy field is going to re-enter the country from the northeast and therefore keep the northeast low. So the energy can come into you. Okay, once it comes into you, if you let it escape, you have not given it enough time to stay with you. So let the northeast be low, let it come in from the northeast, but hold on to it by making the southwest or the opposite corner high and thick and dense. So that energy then stays with you for some time. And that energy, like 500 other ways, yoga, religion, so many things, karma, active, good, selfless work. So it's one of the many choices that Indian culture gives you to evolve for your own improvement and for your betterment. I don't get scared by the negative because you see, unfortunately, and this has happened in your country also, I must say, that, there was a time in history when religion became dogmatic and started controlling things. Yes? So perhaps in Europe, you were told by your religion that unless and until you do this, you won't go to heaven. And kings and queens and emperors paid taxes to say that, we have to buy our ticket to God. At the same time, at the same time, in India, we had a Brahmanical society, right? And funnily enough, the timing is the same. So our Brahmanical society had put aside all the spiritual knowledge, all the scientific knowledge, and not looked at personal growth or evolution, but they clamped on one part of it and said that knowledge belongs to the highest caste, which is the Brahmin, and therefore only they will dispense with that knowledge and they will deal with it. So they created this negative culture of scaring people and saying that if you don't follow Vastu, your daughter won't get married. You won't become rich. You won't become this. But that wasn't the right approach. The right approach was that it was a tool for you to evolve. Like you go to the gym for your body. You are making a house. Why not make it according to the principles of Vastu? You'll attract invisible energy. That's it.
It's interesting the way you explain it, which clarifies many things for the people that don't know, particularly myself, that it enhanced my curiosity. Because yesterday there were people say, I don't believe in there is a climatology thing. Okay. While earlier we had somebody that designed houses for clients, very high profile in the film industry, like you do and people of your level do, saying, well, actually, some of these people, the moment they actually embrace Vastu in the actual way, their life and their career and, they all improve. And it's not just one, it's many of them. So there must be some truth behind it.
Yeah.
Or some that, which is brilliant to hear different opinions.
Right.
It's no question of right or wrong. Everybody do what they want.
Yeah.
But
It's as simple as saying that if the same person who followed Vastu for his house, if he was taking 2 years to make his house, in the same 2 years, if he had gone to the gym, if he had eaten healthy food, and if he had done yoga, for example, he would have been physically better, right?
possibly, yes.
Yes, with all these tools. So similarly, use it as a tool, not as a negative theory.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, you're an advocate for Alibag, where you live. You moved on there. Some people define it the Malibu of, Mumbai. Because, before it was Juhu, no Juhu overdeveloped. No, Alibag is your heaven. And why did you move to Alibag? Out of curiosity.
Why or when?
Why?
I moved to Alibag only to live with nature and to isolate myself from existence and existential problems. Because in the city, I realized that from morning to night, there was too much preoccupation with the existential aspect of life, and that life can't be just about existing. Then what's the difference? Even animals exist. So there has to be some time to contemplate, some time to create ideology, to explore truths. And that was difficult in Bombay somehow. It was too occupying and compulsive. So I wanted a little bit of distance from Bombay. And I was doing somebody's house in Alibag. And when I used to go up and down, the journey itself by sea was cleansing. It was disconnecting. And it was close enough to earn money because you can't survive without that also. So I chose Alibag and I went there, and you won't believe it, but it attracted so much media attention. And finally, because of the stories that I'm telling you, perhaps, or whatever, but BBC covered it or CNN covered it, or, Asian television channels did documentaries, and Wallpaper magazine covered something else, and it was just like going on and on. And at one point, somebody said, "What is Alibag?" And I didn't know what answer to give, so I said, "Oh, Alibag is the Hamptons of Mumbai."
Love that.
So I gave it a name, and now I think I'll have to change it and say that I'm sorry, it's not going to be the Hamptons of Mumbai. It's going to become the New Jersey of Mumbai.
Unfortunately, you push the prices up, and
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
I love that. The Hamptons.
Here we go.
Amazing, amazing. Look, even you have influence even in the real estate. Is whatever you say,
No, it's all.
is incredible. To the young audience, to the newly graduate or the newly interior architects, what advice would you give them? In entering the industry.
I would tell them that when you finish your education, don't be in a rush to start your own practice, because education can only bring you up to 70%. The remaining 30% you can only learn hands-on by getting and jumping into work. So find a good practice that you look up to and take up a job and work for a few years within a working system, within a working culture, because you need that training. Education alone is not enough. Once you've got that, you've been introduced to all the problems, all the strengths of your work, then branch off and then get off to your own path, whatever it is. Close down Pinterest and Instagram and shut all this for some part of the day at least, because the fact that it's becoming easier and easier and easier, it's going to die out equally fast, because at the moment you're feeling the comfort that your client and his wife bring pictures and they say, "Look, this is what we were thinking about the house." And finally, it's the same that you are trying to show them, because everybody is speaking the same visual language. But this over familiarity is also going to become its own death. So I would say that try and shut the phone, try and shut the digital media, and and bring about an inner awareness for beauty, for understanding, um, I would say climate, sustainability, the real issues of the world, for some time, if you can give it time and energy, because in the future, it won't be so important for you to predict the right shade of red. But if you have a knowledge and understanding of the world on a larger scale, you will matter.
It's interesting you saying let's get rid of these social media platforms, and now all these young audiences they keep talking about artificial intelligence. What's your views on that?
See, it's like Vastu in the sense it has its own plus points. You're in a rush, you have to make a presentation for tomorrow morning. Of course, there's no time left to sketch, there's no time left to ideate. Use it, but know its strengths and know its limitations. Don't just make it into a blind habit.
No, that's very good, a good point.
Yeah.
Considering them, since you moved to Alibag, you've been in touch with nature, and
Yes.
they say I moved out from nature, and I'm sure you have a greater understanding of this. And everybody talk about sustainability. Our client in general, not necessarily your client, but in general, when they approach the design community, willing to embrace sustainability for their own things?
No, I don't think so. Because, and it's sad that in India, people are not willing to understand sustainability, because if I can say sustainability was a way of life in India. So we just have to go back to our roots. We don't have to learn anything new to be sustainable, because we were a society that revered the elements of nature. We worshipped animals. Every god had his own vehicle. So Ganesha had a mouse and somebody else had a tiger. So the relationships were built around all forms of life in such a beautiful way. But had we stuck to that, if we would have been the most sustainable country on this planet. But unfortunately, one has to go through this whole sort of cycle of westernization and, um, because of this kind of slavish attitude that was put into our heads, we went and discarded every bit of knowledge we had out of embarrassment, out of saying that, oh, it's mumbo jumbo, it's bullshit. And they got rid of it. And they absorbed everything else. So now their expressions for sustainability are make a whole glass building, but remember that the glass is heat sensitive and the coefficient is such that it doesn't transfer that much. And why make a glass building? They're not happy to discuss that in the tropics.
What I've noticed since I'm coming to India, although I have an Indian last name, my last name is Sona, so it's
Oh wow,
yeah, 100%. But I don't know where we're from, what we're doing. It's the dilemma for my father to find out how far is we. I'm happy, whatever it is, and but it's my gut feeling, and I speak out loud. And yesterday, there were people saying, whatever we do, our documentation is to be perfect, because if I want to go international, I need to raise my standard. Today, we have somebody saying, very in a humble way, yeah, I'm trying to go international. Why is it? And it's a very direct question, that now all the Indian professionals, they play underdog. Well, you guys are no underdog at all. You got the biggest billionaires. All the CEOs of global corporations are Indians.
yes,
The best hospitality. This JW, compared to what are JW in the US, this is a Ritz-Carlton. In the US, it's a Holiday Inn.
yes.
So, in a sense that I found everything added value. But you guys always play humble and underdog. Well, actually, you should say, you know what? Don't see us anymore as a subcontinent. Why is this attitude that everybody has?
I think another 10 more years, because it's unfortunate that the effects of colonization lasted many decades from the 50s onwards, and they could have been erased gradually if the true philosophers, thinkers of India were allowed to speak their minds and determine what education and culture should be for independent India. But at that stage, unfortunately, we were led by a government and by a society that was still reeling from colonization and said that we will only be sophisticated if we eat with a fork and knife. We will be only sophisticated if we study in their colleges and their science and their anti-spiritual scientific. Whereas in India, everything was perfectly balanced, but they didn't want to see that. So now the after effects of losing your own culture completely and getting brainwashed into another culture also leaves you a little with a lack of confidence in yourself, isn't it? So it's amazing, but they just feel happy if the West appreciates them, or the West says you are good. Till then, they don't have any standard of self-confidence and judgment.
But the benchmark is not the West anymore, it's India.
I hope they realize that. It never was. It was just in their minds. I mean, Germany didn't care what France thought of it, or Japan didn't care what China thought of it. Each country was happy by itself.
Yes.
It's just that we sort of programmed everything towards the West. But it's changing, and thanks to the new government now that is trying to kind of bring back that self-confidence through economy, because I think that's the only word that the whole world understands is money and power. So in that sense of the word, when the power and money shifts into India, you see that confidence will come back.
It's amazing. I always joke with my friends, my neighbors in India. I said, we never been colonized. We never colonized because the Roman Empire, wherever they went, they only look at women and then come back. And you guys, the moment that you've been colonized, we are in a mess. You are in a greater position. So
Yeah.
like somebody to colonize us for a bit. So maybe, we change attitude. I don't know. It's
So
interesting.
true.
True. Italy is a mess. Economically, we had disaster. Politically, a disaster. Everything. And so I'm like, so I'm not sure who's in a better position. It's okay. We leave it to the
Yeah.
public to debate.
Yeah.
The day that you concentrate your efforts in doing something different
Yeah.
than what you've been doing, how would you like to be remembered in the design industry?
That's a very serious question. How would I like to be remembered? It's not important that I'm remembered. Okay, it's whatever has to happen will happen. But if at all anybody's going to be a sort of nostalgic and wants to remember, then I feel that they should remember that that I was a perpetual student and I was perpetually eager. The child in me was alive always. I'm 71 now. And the child in me is still alive. My curiosity is alive. So keep up that search, that curiosity in you. And it makes you adaptable to changing time, changing society, changing economic orders, because you are adaptable. Don't get too rigid.
Interesting. That's a very good perspective. So I like your answer. Anyway, and last but not least, if I take a massive, giant white canvas and put it on top of the Burj Khalifa, which is to date is the tallest building on the planet, so everybody can see it, assuming, what message would you write on it?
I would paint a red heart.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Leave it for interpretation.
Yeah. I think I would say that the world needs love more than ever before because, it's become too hard. And the Industrial Revolution brought about this competitiveness because man beat nature, replaced nature and built machines and got so strong and aggressive that it lost out on the finer aspects of life, which love is an important feeling and an emotion. It's been put aside for convenience. So in this chaotic world where there is so much sort of happening, there's no sense of logic. You can't depend on world leaders. You can't depend on anything. You can't even depend on the climate. So at that time, the only thing that needs to be revived is that feeling of love, of empathy, and of compassion.
Have you ever considered going to teaching?
I was a flop. I tried it. After 6 months, they kicked me out.
That was a long time ago.
No, that was 3 years ago.
They don't know what they missed.
I'm telling you the truth. You know what happened? The university is very close to where we are sitting. And the best part is that it was a friend's college. So the friend was already convinced that I was the right person to teach and I had retired. So he said that, why don't you come and teach? And I said, okay, that's very lovely. I'd like to give my time. But what I realized is that one person or one short period of time cannot bring about critical change now in society. It has to happen as a movement. See how Bauhaus happened and it solidified as mid-century design. Something like that needs to happen because when I went, whatever I was teaching was about personal growth and evolution and exploration, and whatever they wanted to study was career, job, and now, and success and power. So the two of them were conflicting. And the theories, when they conflict, you end up upsetting the balance, the natural balance that, for good or bad, but that balance has come about over so many decades. Who am I to go and upset that balance? Because the teacher started feeling insecure, the students started feeling insecure, and there was such a unhealthy atmosphere. They were still respecting me because of who I was, but I spoke to the family that owned the institution and I said, this is your personal reading of me. You admire me, and thank you for that. It is good enough, but I can't upset this natural balance of the institution. It has to be looked upon from scratch. Because, for example, what they were trying to teach interior design students, they were trying to still teach them how to make brick walls. And, they were still trying to teach them in the first year of college, they were trying to teach them complex joineries and things like that. And I said, these kids, when they go with AI and with a pool of information, when they come to work for a practice like mine, on the first day, they will only have to know which kitchen or which wardrobe to specify. They don't have to construct the kitchen platform. So put them in the field, give them that knowledge, expose them to that. This is historic knowledge. It didn't work. So that's it. No regrets. It's fine.
On that note, dear Pinakin, I can stay here forever to talk to you.
So can
Unfortunately, we come to an end.
And
thank you.
Thank you. And all interviews only happen from the host to the guest. But you must put in this 1 minute for me. You can cut off any part of my interview, that nobody has asked me questions with such depth, with such honesty and awareness as you have. And and that proves that, people of substance exist all over the world. It's not that they are only in India or in the West or this or that. There's no such thing.
I always say this, the difference between when you go to a country, in particular a country like India, besides going to a country like Italy, their country, they independently of what the situation was, or managed by others, or kind of independent, you can never take away the richness of the culture. Still there.
Yeah.
So first we need to learn about the Indians and their life, their culture, their desire, their aspiration. Then we can talk about business.
How wonderful.
Till then. So this is why, for me, it's a genuine interest. Is talking to you.
It shows. Thank you.
Otherwise, I wouldn't do what I do. It's not a commercial operation. It is a genuine giving back to a country that we as an organization have decided to invest and come. But first, we need to learn about the country.
That's wonderful. Thanks.
Simple as that.
Thank you. Lovely.
Thank you.